Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Shrimp Tank. I'm your co-host, Ted Jenkin, with my co-host, Lee Heisman. And of course, we'll bring in our guest in just a minute, the other Ted on the show, Ted McGrath. And we'll talk all about everything that he's doing. It's got some really cool stuff to discuss today. Every week right here on the Shrimp Tank, we try to talk to some of the brightest and best entrepreneurs, CEOs, business owners in and around the city of Atlanta and across the United States. You have to go to our Shrimp Tank YouTube channel, check out the recent ones that we did with famous P90X inventor Tony Horton, Hall of Fame safety of the Philadelphia Eagles, Brian Dawkins, and so many more on there that you can get inspired basically to learn this combination of book smarts and street smarts. And forget about getting your MBA at school. You can become an MBA in entrepreneurship right here on the Shrimp Tank. As always, make sure that you download us at Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or anywhere around the internet. And you can see a replay of all of the entrepreneurs at shrimptankpodcast.com. I'm excited today to have on what I would call to be one of those entrepreneurs that's juggling many things at many times, Ted McGrath. He's a theater performer. He's a speaker. He's also a best-selling author. He's got a multitude of products inside of his business. And Ted, thank you so much for joining us today. And when I looked at this term CTO, people often think Chief Technology Officer, but no. You have a different term, CTO. Tell people what you do as this Chief Transformational Officer and what that means.
I made that up like a decade ago, so it's a little outdated.
I like it. I like it.
But I'm like a visionary, man. So like I think I like to think of really big ideas and fun ideas that can kind of integrate all different types of things. So, for example, when I started my seminar business a decade ago, I was doing seminars and it was great. And, I was leading maybe 3 or 4 a year and then getting booked on all different stages and traveling around the country and the world. And it was fun. But I kind of realized, well, that's a limited space. I could reach 24,000 people in 1 year on seminar stages. Last year, I reached 8.5 million people online with my brand. Wow. So it would take me, 30 years to reach 750,000 people through seminars. And I was able to reach, 12 times that in 1 year last year. So that's when I started to pivot to go, hey, I need to kind of transform and shift into online marketing while keeping in the seminar brand. And so I learned marketing and I learned advertising. It's like, how do you put $1 in and make $4 cash back in your brand? And so I wanted to perfect that and master that. And I have over the last about 8-9 years of doing that. And so I always like to kind of merge like industries with industries or different spaces together. And while I was doing my speaking, which is my love, and my marketing, which to me, marketing is a dream machine, right? Like if you have a dream and you have marketing, which is a dream machine because it produces an audience. Any dream you have can come true, right? So for me, I wanted to do a one-man play about 8 years ago when I saw somebody performing one on stage, and I had no acting background, no experience doing anything like that in this lifetime. And I just decided I'm going to do it. And so I launched it 6 or 7 months later, and I've been doing it I've been doing it ever since. So I was able to launch my passion and dream for acting on the back of my seminar business, on the back of my marketing stuff, and merge it all together. And now we're doing some pretty cool things where we're turning it into a feature film. So I meet with my writer every week, and I'm going to be starring in my own feature film. And now we're producing another film, which we just started on another project. And then we launched a whole new company called Actors Got Dreams that launches next February, which is really exciting, that we're kind of keeping under wraps, but it gives you a little taste of what it is.
So Ted, the versatility of what you're doing, it's interesting because people would say you're juggling so much, but in listening to your story, like a lot of entrepreneurs, it seems to be organic growth because everything's playing off something else, which is actually a big value add because, again, you're not having to go outside of your swim lane. But speak to me about what you said, which was impactful. You said you could normally speak to 24,000 people in person, but now your reach is millions because of the social media and obviously the remote world that we live in today. But talk to me a little about the impact, because remote is great. And, Ted and I have been doing this now for 7 years. We have over 1,500 podcasts. We're in 15 cities across the country, all of our studios and our hosts that are part of our franchise. But when we have guests come in the studio, there's a whole different experience and impact when we're in person versus remotely. Yes, you can get a lot more done, but speak to the impact you're making and the differences you feel when you're in person versus remote.
It's a great question because we just did our first in-person like seminar in December, which was a month ago, that we hadn't done one in 30 months in person. And it was kind of funny because initially I was like, man, is it going to be fun to do these again? Like, what's the experience going to be like? And it was amazing. Like, the experience to do it in person versus virtual was about 1,000 times better.
And think about that. You were doing it in person before. You probably lost perspective for a time of 30 months, and then you came back to it.
Completely lost perspective. And then we shifted online and we did virtual seminars, which were just as profitable to some degree, but it was not as fun, not as fulfilling, not anywhere nearly as impactful as doing it in person. So I just did it in person, and then of course I get to do my play at the seminar as well, so that's fun. So I have, two things that I'm doing in one, and then I promote my charities as well. So I try to take, like, do one thing that produces 5 or 6 results. That's kind of my focus. How do you do one thing that produces 5 or 6 results?
There are a lot of entrepreneurs who think about writing a book. They think about speaking. How do you recommend for a CEO of a company or somebody who's an entrepreneur that gets invited to start doing speeches in different places because of their expertise? How did you figure out your pricing structure, and how do you recommend somebody think about their pricing structure for doing speeches?
I like to speak and sell personally. So I think that's always been my thing. How do you get booked on a stage and then go sell something? So if I can get on a stage with 100 people and then sell to an audience, I can at least convert 20% of the people on a $2,000 product. So I show up and I make $40,000. I split it with the person who's doing the seminar. So I take home 20, which isn't a lot of money at all to go do that, fly out and spend 3 or 4 days of your time. But then when you take those 20 people, if you have a good back end system, you can take 20 of those people and upsell them. And with our ratio, we could upsell 8 to 10 of those people into a $10,000 program. So one event like that I go fly out to, it's not worth $20,000. It's really worth $100,000 in cash to me if I fly out to an event like that with 100 people in the room.
So Ted, are they paying you in cash? Is it dollar bills, $10 bills? You said cash.
I wish they were paying me in Bitcoin, but no. I wish they were paying in Bitcoin. No, just obviously, where they're sending me the dough in terms of when we make a commission, we put it on the credit card,
Yeah. So Ted, you spoke a little about what was so intriguing to me is this one-man play, right?
Yeah,
and I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, of course.
Right.
And I know we don't have much time on this shortened show, but describe that, and can you do a little bit for us?
Yeah, I mean, I'll describe it for you first, and then I'll show you something. So, like, I wrote this play called Good Enough, right? From the time I was like 8, I would walk around asking my parents, I'm like, how come it never feels like it's enough? Like, I just had that consideration. Like, you go do something, it's never enough. It's never enough playtime, never enough sleep, never enough working out. When I was 12 years old, I was like, I'm working out now. It doesn't feel like it's enough. Never felt like enough. So I always had that, like, what is this, right? So I wrote a play called Good Enough, right? And then when I became 21 years old, and at 22, I cracked 6 figures in income, and I was like, well, that didn't feel like enough. I wasn't happy. I OD'd that night, from drugs and alcohol. It's all coming out of my body. I'm like, well, money didn't do it. That sure wasn't enough. What's next? So I kind of went on this chase in my life of, well, money wasn't enough. What's next? Okay, power and status. Let's go get that. And then I became one of the top partners for the top life insurance companies in the world. And that wasn't enough. And then I go, okay, I'll do entrepreneurship. And I went and started up a couple businesses, and that wasn't enough. And then I became a speaker, and that wasn't enough. And so I was like, this is kind of a chronic problem. Like, I'd love to share my message of how I feel about this. And I did a show, and I played 12 or 13 different characters from the show. And it's basically my journey in life of on a search to feel like, how do I become good enough? And then how do I really chase my dreams and find my purpose? And it goes through everything from my childhood to my crazy college years, to my drug years, to my alcohol years. There's a great message in there. And I have all kinds of funny people in there. Like I have my tennis coach in there who's like, Grant, some kind of baller, huh? That's my tennis coach, right? And then I have my Italian dude. Let me tell you something. You know what you got? You got fucking place, huh? Right? So I got all these different characters, right? That I play in this show that just it's fun. And so you'll see me telling a story for 65 minutes, but I'm my tennis coach, and then I'm talking to me, and so I play my tennis coach for a second, and then I go into me, and then I play, my dad, and then I become me. And so I play all these different characters, and it's fun and it's entertaining and people love it. And I just got back from Edinburgh, which is the largest theater festival in the world. And, I was one of the shows there, and I did 14 shows in 19 days or 20 days, 14 shows in 20 days. And it was amazing. And I had people from Australia, and I had people from London, and I had people from obviously Scotland and America. And I had people who were 80, I had people who were 20. And the message communicates to 20-year-olds, 80-year-olds, different countries, didn't matter. People were really impacted by it. So
Ted, I have to interrupt because I'm looking at my Ted on the screen, who had done stand-up in Boston years ago. And as you tell the story, Ted, I see my Ted is salivating like, oh, I think I want to do this as well. Have you do any stand-up before this? Did you do any performing on stage?
No, I never, from this, when I was a kid, Eddie Murphy, I loved, and I used to, imitate him with my foul mouth as a kid. That's it, so I loved watching him. Like, he would do these characters, so I would imitate the characters. But that was when I was like, I don't know, 8 years old. I was young when I was watching them. I was like 8, right? So I would do Eddie Murphy and just do it. And then, at some point I got invalidated when I was doing it. I was like, oh, whatever, I'll drop this, right? But from that time, from 8 years old till 30 or so, I had no experience whatsoever in theater, no interest in it. I would go to Broadway and never communicated to me. I would go because it was the language in Broadway for me at the time was just way over my head, and I didn't understand what was going on. And so I wasn't like, oh, I want to be up on that stage on Broadway. And then I saw Bo Eason do a one-man play when I was 30 something years old. And that was like, oh, wow, a guy in a seminar room, one person, comes out in a football uniform, played sports like me. And I was like, and he's playing characters. Oh, I could do this. And it just, everything seemed to line up, and it just made sense to me. And everybody else thought I was crazy, but I was like, no, I do seminars. I tell stories. I used to impersonate characters when I was a kid. And there's one guy, oh, I can do this. And it just made sense. And I started doing it. And funny enough, I just did it literally like 3.5 weeks ago. My girlfriend, she's an actress, she was on Riverdale, 24, whatever. So she's never seen me do it. And, and a lot of people here, friends here in Florida who've never seen my play, knew me as an entrepreneur speaker and thought I was crazy, and came and were blown away by it. I was like, wow, wow, this is actually a real show, so it's fun, man.
Yeah, I got to go see this show. That's a side note.
Yeah.
Would I be curious, a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to our podcast and will watch these videos, I mean, to get to 8.5 million people through your social and other platforms is really an astounding number. What kind of advice would you give to new entrepreneurs who are trying to grow their social following and get to 10,000 followers or 20,000 followers? Anything you learned along the way that you think could help other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I'm an advertising person. And we're like, my main growth this year is for us to get better at social. So like what I reached it through was purely ads. Like I got 70,000 on Instagram and whatever on Facebook, but like I never put an emphasis on social. And so for me, I was fascinated by the idea of like, I could push a button with $1 and then measure $4 coming out. And to me, that was the game that interested me. And so I think my advice to the entrepreneur would be, what's the one game you want to play really well, and pick that. Because I think if you try and do all of it out of the gates, it's very overwhelming. And to me, advertising, although it requires building a bigger team, and it requires you really need to know your metrics and you really need to understand it.
Sure.
To me, it takes less time for me to do that than it would on social, which you're constantly creating content, and you're creating content all day long, and you're creating content 24/7, 365. To me, it would just makes more sense in hindsight that I did advertising first. Now, not to diminish social, because it's obviously hugely important. I think you need to have both. And so now we're really putting an emphasis on that this year to have both. Make sense?
Very much so. And, you guys live in that space. I got Ted, and Ted owns a social media company as well, Ted. And McGrath, you're an expert in this realm. I'm the least expert. So I'm going to ask the question based upon most listeners right now. that are looking, Ted, and first off, you've already segmented yourself with the show. I'm coming to whatever city, and because we're in Atlanta and it's warm where you are, I'm coming down to you, of course,
Love it.
to watch a show or some warm weather when it's there. But here's the question. You look at social media, whether you hit your Instagrams or links, and everybody's out there kind of pitching the same pitch, right? I'm the expert. I'm here to give you guidance. I'm here. You need to listen to me on social media. You've differentiated yourself, Ted. First off, I'm around a lot of people like TJ and I. We get to interview a lot of CEOs and entrepreneurs. And already in this short interview, I hate the fact that it's remote and we don't have an hour to an hour and a half together.
Yeah.
But I can already tell you're different. Can you speak to what differentiates you, number one? And number two, what would you recommend to people out there going, well, in social media, I'm just getting lost with everybody. How can they differentiate themselves?
Yeah, I think for me, like, so like for one is I do speaking, two, I do marketing, and three, I do a show, right? So that means like in storytelling, I'm pretty good at it because I do a show instead of like a 10-minute story, I do a 65-minute story, right? Marketing, I just learned because I don't look at myself as like my aspirations in life are not to be a marketer. I look at what does marketing do for the person who wants to market their brand, like what dream do you have? And then how are you helping other people with that dream accomplish what they want to? So I think marketing, my perspective on it is a dream machine. And my company stands for We Are What We Dream at the top of the 30,000 foot level. And then third, I'm a speaker. So if somebody wants to work with me and they're like, I love story, I love speaking, and I want to learn marketing, there's better marketers than me in the world. There's better storytellers than me in the world. There's better speakers, but you're going to be hard pressed to find a person who knows marketing, storytelling in terms of performance and storytelling, and speaking at the level that I do. You know,
AJ, I got to jump in and ask Ted a quick question. Ted, I have to jump in and ask this.
Yeah.
You seem like you're completely on top of your game when in every facet. I have to jump in, as I know we wrap up our short amount of time here. I need our listeners to know what was maybe one of the largest challenges you ran into that you didn't have an answer for at the time that you may have learned from, because you're like most CEOs and entrepreneurs and people of your level of success. Anybody that's listening that hasn't run through the entrepreneurial meat grinder, think, oh, look at you. You're just sitting at the top, Ted. This has just been an easy path for you. It's very easy to you. I think quite the opposite. Give me something that maybe was humbling for you that you learned from.
This last year has been very difficult. And it's been a challenge because as you build something and it grows exponentially, right? The thing that you have to do is like you wear a different hat. And so it's going from speaker, performer, marketer to now I have to really put the CEO hat on and go, how do I organize this company in a way that people show up to calls with, they have statistics and they have targets and they know what they're going for. And man, that's not my natural gravitation. I'm a communicator. I'm a frontliner guy. I'm a performer. That's where I get the most joy. I like doing stuff like this. But so to be with a team and to really organize a team is not my natural thing. Now I'm great at statistics. I'm great at analyzing and figuring out problems, but to get other people to put on their hat to do that has been the biggest challenge I've probably run into in this business in the last 2 decades. So it's been very humbling. It's like, how do you get people to do this? And you're dealing with all different personalities, very talented people, but some people are very creative and they're not analytical. You know, and then you're dealing with a team where, you know, everybody's got like, I want to do my thing, or I want control, and this person wants control. And it's a very difficult thing to build and establish an organization so that it can grow to the next level. So the advice I would give to somebody out there, if you're in that spot, one, you got to know your metrics. You know, if you don't have stats and you can't look at stats every Monday morning when you come in, you can't run a business. You just can't. Two, like what we're really getting in is like what are the targets? Somebody can report a stat and go, hey, I produced 10 apples this week, but like, what is your target this week so that you're going to be excited and you actually have a game to play? Like imagine getting out on a football field and you're like, we're just going to throw the football around, but we have no game. Like we're not even going to keep score, and we don't know at the end who won or who lost. Most people are walking around in life at the end of the week, they have no idea if they won or lost, right? And so they just feel like crap. And they're just like, I'm not motivated. I have no morale. You have no morale because you have no target that you're going after. You don't even know if you hit it or if you don't hit it. And you don't know if you're winning or you're losing. And eventually you wake up one day and you lose your job or you lose your company and you're like, okay, I've lost now. Now it's clear. But you got to get the indicators like week by week, day by day, man. Otherwise you're out of business. So that's been humbling.
I'm going to ask one final one here, which is that you mentioned earlier, and obviously become so skilled in seminar marketing, and to hear that number of 20%, I don't think people watching this realize the magnitude of how hard it is to get a 20% conversion from a live speaking engagement, and how good you have to be able to do that. What tips would you give people around preparing for any kind of seminar where they're trying to convert leads that you may have learned that, could help them even get remotely close to that kind of conversion?
Yeah, I think number one is like, if you're going to lead a seminar for We Can Have the Lamborghini offer, right? But, I made a $120,000 offer from the stage at my last event. I got 35% of the room to raise their hand and stand up and say they wanted it, right? For $120,000 offer. Now, we didn't sell that many because we were only taking on 3 people, because I only wanted to work with 3 people in this program. But we had, how many people were clawing to get into this thing, right? So everybody aspires to the best. It doesn't matter if you go like drive this versus drive the Lambo, or go to space in a rocket ship versus a Lamborghini, you're going to choose the rocket ship. So sell the rocket ship if you're going to lead a 4-day seminar, and create something that people can aspire to, and it's really exciting, they can stretch to. That's one. 2, when you make offers, I literally walk down off the stage into the audience and I just talk to them. I don't use PowerPoints. I don't use, I hate whiteboards. To me, it's like, can you get in communication directly with the audience? And I go and I make the call to action, and I ask them to stand up for their dreams. So you're going to make a declaration in front of everybody here. If you want this, you're not going to fill out a form in secret. You're not going to run to the back. You're going to stand up and be recognized. And so when I make the 120K, they stand up. For the girls, it's like, this girl is on fire. For the guys, like bad to the bone, and so it's a show, man. It's a show.
I like that.
And they go nuts, and then we have, like, for the guy, even in the background is like this culmination. There's a song called Legendary. Legendary's playing, like, it's gonna be legendary, and so the room's going nuts. And I don't care, like, I'm making that 3rd, that 5th, that 10th call to action. And when the room is exhausted and you've literally gotten as many to stand as possible, you drop into a story. And so people think, oh my God, it's over. The tension goes out of the room. And so people goes, it's the sale's over. And you're telling the story, and people are so lost in the story. For me, it's always a personal story. Like mine is when I spoke at my grandma's funeral and I gave the send-off speech, right? So I tell this story, and it's very heartfelt, and it's very real to me. It's very personal. And at the end, it's like, the audience is touched. And then I tie back in the message, of like my grandparents always used to have this saying, it's a good life. And I said, if you're going down a path right now and it's looking like a good life and you want extraordinary, you need to do something different. And those 12 words or 15 words at the end of that story, boom, somebody pops. I don't even need to make the call to action again. I don't need to say, get this program. I just need to say those words and somebody pops up. I want it. I want it. I want it. So it's your pitch should be one of the most fun parts of your entire event. And if it's not, and if you're not challenging people, and if you're not having fun with it, and if you're not walking in the audience and tapping somebody and go, what are you thinking right now? Like there was one guy, this big guy in there, and like they have a good business. And I'm like, and I'm talking to everybody in this room, just like the guy I talked to in the hallway, you right here. And I walk up and I tap him, who asked me a question about your business. And I gave you an answer in 90 seconds that helped you solve a problem. I'm talking to you right here, right? It's like, well, I'll have a conversation. He grabs the envelope and stands up. So if you get in communication with people and you get rid of all these tricks of like NLP and how to like it influence people from the stage and like get rid of the bullshit, man. There's something called communication. And if you communicate to people, right, directly to them, and you get the message to them rather than trying to go under the hoop or over the hoop or around the bend or spin them up or confuse them or trick them, and you just communicate to them and you tell them what you're doing and you tell them why you're doing it, people will respond and say, I like this person. Yes, I want to work with this person. And there's such a myth and misnomer in the seminar industry where you have to use techniques and tactics to sell. No, you don't. You don't have to use techniques and you don't need to use tactics. You literally need to use a basic foundation, a fundamental of communication, which is like, have I communicated to this person the offer clearly? Have I told them people who are successful? And if I told them I want this for them because I care for them and I want their dreams to come true, and if they want their dreams to come true too, they should take this envelope. And can you tell stories in the meantime, because people learn through stories, that inspire them? And if you can do that, you can make an offer. And anything other than that, it doesn't make any sense to me. And it never has. And I've tested this with like formulas that I've learned from other people. And I write it on the stage to my seminar audience. Go, here's the basic formula. And I could give you 26 points that I could pull up at any given time of something that I could use that's been successful for me. But if you just know like these 4 or 5 points to a presentation and you just do it, you're going to win, you know? And it's just basic communication. Like somebody's not going to listen if they don't know what the problem is. And they don't know that you know that they have a problem. Like, hey, I understand you have this problem. Let them know. Somebody's not going to listen if you don't say, hey, there's a big opportunity I want to talk about. And somebody's not going to listen unless you educate them. And somebody's not going to listen if you don't tell a story about yourself to where they can trust you. You know? And that's the whole presentation. And then when you get to the end, and you're like, I was a great presenter. Why didn't they buy? I'm bad at selling. No, you just didn't tell them enough times to stand up and grab the envelope.
Ted McGrath, my gosh, guys, we could sit on here for hours. I'm enamored, Ted. Yeah. I'm enamored. I know we got to wrap this up. TJ, if you want to close out and talk about going forward, of course, with any other guests that we've had.
Well, I just want to know, how can people who are watching this today, thinking about taking it to the next level, how can they get in touch with you to use you, hire you as a speaker, you know, all the services that you provide?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to tedmcgrathbrands.com, brands.com. That's our new website. We just released it a couple months ago. You know, it's just like, go on there. It says choose your adventure. So if you want like speaking there, if you want message to millions, it's there. If you want to check out my play, it's there. And then there's just you download something, we'll give you some content for free there, you know?
I love it, man. This is exciting stuff. That seminar thing is pure gold for people that are watching this today. Pure gold.
Oh, thanks, man. You guys have done 1,500 podcasts, yeah?
Yeah, 1,500, yeah.
Oh my God, man. We got to have like a conversation offline, right?
We'll stay on with me, Ted. Stay on with me as TJ wraps this up.
Sounds good.
Well, everybody, just go to tedmcgrathbrands.com. I mean, you just heard gold today, folks, in terms of marketing and what to do at seminars that, I mean, here in 2023, it could just dramatically change your business. And I mean, that's why we do this podcast. It's to interview the brightest and best entrepreneurs in all sorts of fields, blue collar, white collar, because look, you don't have to go to Harvard to basically learn how to make $1 million, right? You just got to get street smarts, learn how to put together systems and processes and the things that Ted talked about today. And if you stay focused on just one new thing here, like Ted talked about in 2023, you might be able to change your business. This is this week's episode of the Shrimp Tank. Look forward to talking to you next week. We've got 6 months of great entrepreneurs booked up, ready to talk to you about them right here in 2023. Thanks for watching this episode of the Shrimp Tank.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.